first of all, let's just pivot. Um, let's dive in actually. Today, like I said, we'll be setting up a desktop environment complete with a display manager on our Gentoo Linux virtual machine over here to kind of show you guys how you go from 0 to 1 in Gentoo and get into probably a user space that you're more familiar with. The last stream, we effectively installed Gentoo and got it up and running for a single user. It wasn't that functional in terms, it didn't have a lot of utilities. Look at that beautiful grub theme right there. It's a gorgeous grub theme. Didn't have any real useful user utilities. It didn't have a window manager. There was no like Windows environment at all, frankly. We just had, fact beginning today, we have a user. It's got sudo privileges, and that is pretty much it. We can inspect our hardware with lspci, lsusb. Um, we can peek the boot messages here, the D message. But we can't really do much else. Like I think even is wiget's a command that's installed. Some really basic functionality is installed here. But this is not a friendly user interface for most people. Most people will not feel comfortable only using their computer in terminal. Even the most elite hacksaws of the elite hacksaws are using window managers, frankly, because that's how you browse the web. You need a window manager, you need a desktop environment, you need to be able to run Firefox, Chrome, etc. So we're going to get set up today with a desktop environment. Like I stated previously, in Gentoo, the package manager is Portage. It's a merge, and that's how we're going to be installing our desktop environment today. First things first, we need to get a desktop. We need to get a window manager installed. Okay, and window managers are backed by one of two services. One is x.org or x386 or x11. All is the same pretty much thing, depending on where you come from and how long you've been in this space. We'll call it X for now. The other one is called Wayland, right? So I'll be honest, I'm not really sure since we are on a virtual server here. You can lspci and you can grep video. Maybe it's a capital V. No, or is it VGA? There it is. VGA compatible controller. VirtIO 1.0 GPU. This is a virtual graphics card, y'all. I'm not sure how much support Wayland actually has for virtual graphics cards. I think we should give it a go eventually, but for now, we're gonna start with X, and we're probably going to install one of the lighter desktop environments out the gate. And in doing so, what that's going to do is that's going to bring in a whole lot of dependencies that, we'll ultimately end up depending on later. So two of the, I would say, lighter desktop environments that are available for Linux users are probably XFCE or Cinnamon, maybe. Let's see what happens when I try to install Cinnamon. You'll see that we have some dependencies that we need to resolve. We need to make some configuration changes to our environment's use variable here. We're going to search Gentoo XFCE, and we'll follow the guide here. The Gentoo wiki is beautiful. It's just beautiful. So it encourages us to use the desktop profile, which will set a bunch of defaults. And then it also says Poplar will be pulled in as a dependency when emerging XFCE. On the desktop profile, this package will use the Qt6 use flag by default, and so it will pull in Qt dependencies that might not be needed for XFCE. So one of the ways we can get around this is by setting a use flag, right? So remember, guys, use flags are how we configure packages in Gentoo. Um, there's a bunch of extra things that XFCE can be compiled with or installed with. One is notifid. It basically replaces the notification daemon. So when you get notifications on your desktop, the notification daemon basically handles those. So you can go ahead and install that if you would like. But here it is. Here's the package that we are actually trying to install, XFCE for Meta. Um, Another package I actually want to install before everything else is giving us the ability to search portage a little easier. EIX is something that I use, frankly, all the freaking time to inspect portage. So let's see here. Let's go back here, go here. And so I'm just gonna install EIX. It's just a handy utility for working with portage. Again, I always emerge PV to inspect first. And I'll show you why we do this. Alright, so cool. Not a huge package. We'll go ahead and install that. Brings in 3 small packages or 2 dependencies that are really tiny, and then EIX, which is only 628 kilobits. So we'll install that, and I'll show you here in a minute why we did that. We're definitely going to use this a whole lot more in the future. If you ever get stuck in terminal and you want to explore portage, EIX is just an amazing utility for exploring portage. It can be pretty intense trying to explore portage. So you get utilities like EIX update for updating the cache. What else do you get here? EIX sync. Uh, Basically EIX remote update. Well, I'll show you guys how I use it. And you can search for packages. That's what I would have done. That's what I like to do. So EIX, just a great way to search packages. You can find things like what package owns a particular file, what package depends on other packages, what package is bringing in a particular dependency, stuff like that. It's pretty handy. So I would have used it here in this situation. Oh, and I did it again. Keep hitting the wrong key. I would have done this XFCE 4. Oh, we got it. Update. Sudo EIX update. Boom. Now we can search for XFCE4. You can see all the various packages that have XFCE4 in the name. So a lot of packages related to XFCE4. You can pick and choose which additional utilities you want to bring in with XFCE4, etc. But what I want to find here is just the window manager, just the desktop environment, and I'm not seeing that there. So if I go back to XFCE, you'll see XFCE4 meta is what we should be emerging here. So since Cinnamon, right? If you remember when I went to install Cinnamon, the system said I needed to do some custom use configuration in order to get this working and recompile glib, which is a massive package, frankly. I didn't want to do that. That was not going to be ideal. So instead, we're going to try for XFCE4 and see what happens. right? So here we can do sudo emerge ask, or just pv XFCE 4 meta and see what happens. Well, this one also wants us to install or to configure our use packages, and if you look closely, you can see that it's forcing us to choose either Wayland or X. Okay, so we have to pick one or the other, right? Now remember, like I said earlier, right? Wayland or X are the two, really window manager libraries available for Linux. Wayland is the newer one. X is the old one. And you can see here, real brief description. X is mature. Wayland is newer. Provides better isolation, preventing applications from spying on or hijacking others. Wayland offers lower latency, smoother rendering with fewer tears, yada, yada, yada. I think what we are going to do, just because most people are probably going to prefer the latest and greatest, and on top of that, it's definitely the future for desktop environments in Linux. We're going to use Wayland. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set a global use flag in etc portage make.conf. If you remember, this is where we set our global use flags, and I'm going to say Wayland. Okay, and then we're going to see what happens when we try to merge it now. Boom. A ton of dependencies. Okay, so let's pipe this to less so we can see what dependencies that is going to bring in. All right. So it's basically telling us that we still need to set some use flags, right? Now, if we had chosen a desktop profile instead of the base profile, this probably would have worked out of the box. But because we didn't, we don't have those use flags set, right? And so you can see at the bottom here, it's going to bring in a lot of dependencies, 174 packages. That's a lot, right? Now, most of these are relatively small. Some of these, like some of the GNOME libraries and X libraries, those are pretty big. And so what we'll want to do is take a break, while this is all compiling here. But you notice we're not getting that original output there. So let's try this again. It was asking for some additional use flags to be configured. So we'll find out what those are. So X, some of these need X, some of these need GTK, some of these need udisks. Yeah. So GTK is one of probably two super popular libraries for drawing windows and graphics. The other one is Qt, like we saw in that document earlier today. Ideally, we don't pull in both of them. The more dependencies you pull in, the longer the compilation takes, the longer it takes to install. That's just like what we're dealing with here. So GTK is written in C. Qt is a C++ framework. Qt is widely considered the superior choice for cross-platform applications. GTK applications often look foreign, yada yada yada. Comparison for end users. GNOME or GNOME users find that GTK apps blend perfectly in their desktop's aesthetic. KDE Plasma users generally prefer Qt apps for their deep integration and theming. Consistency. GTK is often perceived as lighter and faster for simple utilities. Qt can be heavier because it often pulls in more dependencies, especially if written specifically for KDE, though standalone Qt apps like VLC or Wireshark perform very efficiently. So just two completely different libraries for building graphical user interfaces. Ideally, we don't pull in both of them. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start adding some use flags to our global use flag configuration here, so we can get rid of some of these. I don't want to say errors, just requirements, right? Again, we went with the base profile and not a desktop profile. Oh my gosh. Up here at the top, we went with the default AMD 64 profile. Okay, so it is not pre-configured for graphical user interfaces, unlike a desktop profile would be, right? So first thing we want to enable is GTK. So we're gonna add portage make.conf, and we're gonna add GTK, and GTK3 was another one that it wanted to set. So let's try this again and see what else it complains about. Boom. Okay. Harfbuzz, X, and udisks. Okay, so udisks are user disks, effectively. You can search use flags over here on Google pretty easily. Gentoo's got great documentation. Just search use udisks. Okay. So it'll tell you udisks is a dbus daemon offering storage-related services, mounting of file systems, partition of storage devices, yada yada yada. I believe XFCE uses this dependency to like automatically mount a thumb drive when you plug it in to the computer, right? Not something we care about a lot, but most people will. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to our global config here. Udisks. And we also need X as well. We're going to support X and Wayland. Why not? And let's see what else we. Now, in the future, when installing like one-off packages, you might want to set custom per package use flags. But since we don't really have anything on this system right now, everything that we do on top of our desktop environment, we want to be supported. So setting global use flags at this point is probably a better idea, and it's fairly safe. It's not going to break anything. Worst case, you bring in more dependencies and it takes longer to install. But you can see, we were going to install like 175 packages. Adding those use flags added some configuration items. So now we're up to 214 packages to be installed. Okay, so elogind is another one it calls out as something that you'll want to install. This is how Xorg or X11 or X will kind of manage permissions and users and access. So we're going to set elogind globally, and we're going to set harfbuzz as well. So that looks like a common font that we'll need. Harfbuzz and elogind. Okay. And now when we try to install, it should report everything's good to go, and it will tell us exactly how many packages it would install. Boom, 214 packages. Dang, that's quite a bit. No sweat though. This comes with a crap ton of utilities out the gate for a fully functioning system. Okay, so to show you in detail everything it's going to bring in, I won't go through all 214 items, but I'll call out some of the ones that are actually adding value for us. A lot of these are just um, dependencies of other packages. Some of them add some utilities. Display Manager is how Gentoo basically manages the Display Manager, which we'll install later. Let's see here. We have some Perl dependencies. We have some font dependencies. We have some themes. We have some network dependencies for Python and Perl. It looks like some of these packages depend on Rust, which is going to take a while to compile. What else do we got here? A lot of X dependencies. We got Wayland getting installed as well. Some screensaver utilities. Some desktop file utilities. Some developer tools. Some more fonts. Some Python dependencies. We have some media dependencies. We have the XFCE UI. We have some GTK dependencies here. We have a GUI terminal we're installing. Some encryption tooling we're installing. Some authentication tooling we're installing. An app finder, a panel, a keyring service for keeping your passwords safe, stuff like that. So it's quite a bit of packages, but ultimately, like when you set up a desktop environment, like you're installing a whole lot of packages, a whole lot of utilities. So you kind of get what you ask for when you install a desktop environment like this. Now later, once we have some of these much needed dependencies installed, if you want to switch to a lighter window manager, I'll show you guys how to do that. But for now, let's go ahead and kick this bad boy off. This is going to take quite a while. Not gonna lie, 214 packages. It'll churn for quite a bit, but once it's done, we'll be able to fire that up, and I'll show you guys what XFCE 4 looks like. So while that runs in the background, let's head back over to our guide here. So while this is going to install XFCE, and it doesn't look like it's pulling in any Qt dependencies, which is nice. It will actually let's do something real quick. Let's Control C this. Let's look at this one more time. You notice Gentoo guides for larger packages such as XFCE even show you what the various use flags actually do. Okay, so maybe we want to bring in even more, right? So if I go send key, Control F1, we can see it's not bringing in, it's really only bringing in SVG. Okay, it's not bringing in archive or calendar or an editor or image media, MPD, pulse audio, remote file system search, or uPower. So over here in this doc, you can see what that actually brings in. You can bring in an X archiver, right? So this is a user interface that helps you manage like zip files and tarballs and stuff like that. You can add support for calendars, for CD writer hardware. You can get a mousepad text editor, the image viewer. There's a media player. You can install the MPD client, Pulse Audio, which we're not going to use, remote file systems, search tool, or uPower. I don't think we actually need any of these, which is good. The mousepad editor is nice, but we can always install that after the fact. But it will bring in a GUI terminal for us eventually. So says the meta package brings in the terminal, the panel, the settings, a file manager, an app finder, something for managing removable media, a file previewer, a power manager. If you were on a laptop, this would be handy. And then some Pulse Audio plugins if you use Pulse Audio, but we're going to use Pipewire instead. So here's some additional software as well you might want to install. I'll go ahead and kick this off. So, you know, you might want a CD burning application, you might want a text editor, you might want some window manager themes. Again, if you're on a laptop, you might want the battery plug-in. Maybe you want to monitor, you know, CPU temp, fan, RPM, etc. There's the sensors plugin. So, yeah. All that being said, lastly, you know, XFCE works with GNOME's menu editor, and you know, you can install a lightweight terminal editor emulator as well. So currently installing one of 213 packages. That was quick. Moving on to number 2. This is going to take quite a bit. So while that churns, you know, you'll see at the end here, we can just type start XFCE4 to start the window manager when it's ready to go. So that's XFCE. Okay, now what I was talking about earlier was Linux has tons of different window managers to choose from. Tons. Tons. Right? If you look at the Arch Linux wiki here, you can see there are tons of window managers, right? There are what we call stacking window managers or floating window managers. This is where the window can, you know, effectively, let's see here, I think it's float on your desktop like this. And then there's tiling window managers where the windows are automatically tiled. And then there's, you know, window managers like Hyperland, like which is what I'm using, that can do both. So those are probably the two biggest categories of window managers. And in Linux, a window manager is just that. It is just a tool for managing the windows. Like if you want a full-fledged desktop environment where you get like a panel like I have up here where I can like configure my system, see what workspaces I have open, you know, automatically adjust like my volume and stuff like that. All these utilities, you know, say plus a text editor, plus a terminal emulator, plus, you know, utilities for managing your volume and, you know, browsing your file system right down here like this. When they package all of those together, they call that a desktop environment, right? And I would say probably the most popular desktop environments out there are GNOME and KDE, or GNOME and Plasma, right? Um, so if you're running on Ubuntu, you're going to be using GNOME, okay? So GNOME is a fancy desktop environment that comes with all those utilities, right? So if you install Ubuntu, you get GNOME out of the box. You might not even realize you're using it. If you're on KDE, you get Plasma, or yeah, Plasma. So Plasma is a different one. The big difference between the two being what I stated earlier, one is built on GTK and one is built on Qt. So these are two of the probably most popular desktop environments out there. Um, what we opted to install, or what we were kind of trying to choose between, was Cinnamon and XFCE, or XFCE 4. So XFCE is based on GTK, and it is just effectively a lighter version of GNOME. Has less dependencies, runs a little quicker, less utilities, but still super powerful desktop environment. Another one is Cinnamon. Cinnamon desktop environment. This was created by the developers of Linux Mint, and as you can see here, it's also a really nice desktop environment that looks a lot like Windows. So if you're used to Windows and you're afraid of making the switch to Linux, I highly recommend trying out Cinnamon, or maybe just try Linux Mint. Give it a go, give it a whirl. It is, an open source package, so you can use Cinnamon on any Linux distribution. But I believe the default Linux Mint release here comes with Cinnamon, right? So you can see if I click on download, they have the Cinnamon edition. They also have an XFCE edition, right? And then they have a Mate edition. Mate is effectively GNOME, right? It's a continuation of GNOME 2. GNOME 2 is the older version of GNOME. When they migrated or upgraded to GNOME 3, I think. What is GNOME on now? I think it's on GNOME 3. They made a bunch of architectural changes, right? So that's not what I wanted. So a lot of developers continue to build on GNOME 2, just because they didn't want to refactor everything to support the latest release of GNOME. And so Mate is effectively the modern version of GNOME 2. So that's that. Checking in over here, we are on package 19 of 213. Yeah, we got a ways to go. So those are desktop environments. All desktop environments are going to be floating window managers. Again, that means that the windows will float around the screens like this. You can have two windows floating on a desktop with a background like so, or you can have a tiling window manager that tiles them like so. And I keep hitting the wrong key and losing our place over here. So when it comes to tiling window managers, right, So if you go to tiling window managers, these are really popular as well for folks who love using the keyboard. Frankly, um, i3 was probably the first tiling window manager that got super popular among the majority of the builders out there using Linux. It was developed, I believe, by a group of Google developers, right? So if we go to i3windowmanager.org, it stands for Improved Tiling Window Manager. It was completely written from scratch, and a lot of folks really, really liked it. It had hotkeys for literally everything. So, got really popular really quick, and then people kind of continued to build, right? So, other window managers that are really popular right now are Hyperland and Sway. One of the things that's fun to do, I think it's our Unix born. This is a good forum on Reddit where you can see all sorts of different window managers on display. These things are all super customizable. You're also seeing, things like SDDM, which is a display manager. Here's KDE. Here's OC, which I don't know what that is. Here's Hyperland. Hyperland is another tiling window manager. Mango, I don't know what that is, but like there's the sky is the limit in terms of customization over here on Linux. So at a later date, maybe you want to try a tiling window manager. A lot of folks feel like they work a whole lot faster on tiling window managers because they don't have to like stop and use their mouse to like resize windows, right? They can control everything through the keyboard, and when you know all the hotkeys and you can tab around or switch workstations and window focus and open new windows and interact with them and close them really quickly, a lot of people think that's just the bee's knees, man. So I'm actually using Hyperland right here, and Noctalia is kind of like my desktop environment, right? It's a quote unquote shell built for use with Hyperland, and when you're looking at these window managers, again, you always want to be conscious. Like, is this supported on X or Wayland? So there's a few things you got to consider, but it's a journey, guys. It's a journey. So we'll get into more of this stuff later. Once we get XFCE installed, we'll get a bunch of utilities, a bunch of dependencies knocked out of the way. So exploring other environments will be a whole lot faster. All right, party people, we are back. XFCE 4 is installed. 213 packages compiled from source. Oops. Stand by. We got. My bad. All right. So, dang live streams. Okay, so here we are. Fully installed XFCE 4 with all the dependencies X, Wayland, GTK, login D, all the jazz. All the jazz, right? We already have some news we need to read, so we will check that out next. I don't know if I have to sudo for this. News, read, pipe it to less. Xorg server dropping default SUID. Okay, not super important for us right now. The first thing we absolutely need to do from here with dbus login D Login D is a system D package used for managing user sessions. In Gentoo here, using OpenRC, we actually installed elogind. So if you remember back when we began, we actually added that use flag here. This entire system, when it needs sessions, will depend on elogind and not login which is a system D package. Again, we are running on OpenRC. So the first thing we need to do is enable elogind. Let's start that bad boy. All right, so next thing we should do is enable it. Oops. Or get it running every time we boot up. elogind will auto start dbus for us as well. We need to add it to boot. There we go. All right, we're rocking and rolling. Now we can exit. We can log back in with our new dbus session and all that good jazz, and we can try start XFCE for it. You guys ready for this? Failed. Okay, so permissions issues, right? Glaring right at us. Parse VT settings cannot open dev tty0 permission issues. So in order to get this fired up, first thing everybody should check is the docs, right? Always go to the docs. Make sure you got the docs up and running, ready to go. So we will check this. I'm pretty sure we know what to do, but let's just search for permissions. Authorization or permissions issues. When experiencing authorization permission issues, if launching with startx, replace appropriate. So that's probably what we need to do. That's probably what we need to do here. The other thing we might try, if this doesn't work, let's see here. We're gonna try launching with startx here. So I keep switching my sessions here. So with X, you can basically run anything using startx, and X will automatically execute whatever's in .x init.rc. So we're going to edit .x init.rc, and we're going to add exec dbus launch exit with session XFCE4 session. Okay, this hopefully should solve our permission issues. And now instead of starting XFCE4, we're just going to start X and see what happens. No, still permissions issues. Let's see here. X authority does not exist. We probably skipped something here. Let's see here. Let's see here. What are we missing? What are we missing, guys? This should be able to fire up no problem. We got bad display name, Gentoo 0 in list command. X authority does not exist. That shouldn't matter. Since we're using X, you know what we'll do? We'll just make sure everything is good with X. Xorg. The Xorg guide. Let's check this out real quick. We probably try starting X as root. Why not? If I can remember the root password. Uh-oh. There we go. What happens if we start X here? Cool. What if we start XFCE? And are we in? Are we in? No dice. No dice. Oh, it booted. All right. So this works. We are logged in. to XFCE. There's no background here, which is fine. Let's log out. Log out. Bunch of dbus errors here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so boom, and we have a nice fancy background. So here is XFCE all. Here we got a floating window manager here. Everything's ready to rock and roll from here. You see we have our desktop environment. Cool beans, right? So what we'll do next in the next session here is you can see we have a file browser. We have the ability to change our desktop settings. Ooh, we got fancy backgrounds. I'm a huge fan of this one personally. We can stylize the menus. Let's see what's all in here. Settings, appearance. Cool. I can go dark. I can do light. I can do dark. We can get more themes by downloading them and installing them. But here we are in our desktop environment. Things we still don't have. We still don't have a web browser. Okay. And another thing we don't have is we don't have a display manager or a real, login manager or session manager, if you will. So today, again, right, when we boot this machine up, it just drops us straight into a terminal, right? And then through the terminal, we have to log in as our user, okay? And we have to start our desktop environment manually, okay? So the next thing we'll do in the next session here is get a login manager or a display manager fired up. We have a bunch to choose from. Right now we are depending on X. So you can see what will change next time is when you boot this thing up, it'll boot right into a graphical login manager where you can log in and automatically start your desktop environment. And so you can have a nice graphical login and get right into your desktop environment here, ready to rock and roll and start doing some work. Okay. So that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Pretty simple, right? Frankly, if you were trying to catch up with us and you're wondering where to get started, always head over to Gentoo. We installed XFCE 4 today, and so this guide should get you started. Make sure you follow the docs. Make sure you're setting up elogind, and you probably need access to TTY. So using gpassword-a user TTY will get you in the TTY group. But we got some utilities installed right now. We have a full-fledged desktop environment here where we can begin to actually get a more user-friendly experience in our Gentoo system. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And like always, stay in the matrix, y'all. We'll catch you next time. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. With that, folks, we'll be back tomorrow. Peace out.